This video provides a walkthrough of the product features of the clearMDM enterprise-grade master data management solution for Salesforce. The key MDM challenges addressed by the clearMDM product really start with the single point of reference or single customer view challenge, and this is really about the difficulty in bringing records together from disparate business systems across the enterprise, each of which could well be subject to different data governance standards, different data storage mediums, technology stacks, stakeholders, and so forth. All of those contributory factors make it very difficult to deliver a standardized view that understands the different relationships and the different business rules and ownership constraints across all of those records. So single customer view, 360-degree view, delivering that within the front office view, meaning the CRM layer or Salesforce in context. That can be incredibly valuable for an organization, but can be incredibly difficult and time expensive to deliver. Additional challenges of duplicate prevention, delivering point of entry controls that prevent the creation of duplicate records in the first place is again a very typical challenge. And I guess one that's less obvious is the ability to deliver end-to-end data stewarding processes that are streamlined and efficient and able to support that continual drive for improvement across data management, quality, and governance. So, having thought a bit about the kind of challenges and context, looking at the product itself, I'll try to relate the product features back to the challenges where relevant to do so. So starting off the product tour, the first place to look is the settings tab. In this area we have the ability to configure target objects and data sources in addition to other configuration elements of the product. Now, target objects are a core concept to understand, and essentially a target object is where master data records are either created or updated by MDM operations. If we look at the settings page here, we can see the settings themselves are logically grouped by MDM operation, where a particular field is looking for perhaps a checkbox type. Then we can see that the list of fields presented is restricted to the anticipated type, and the pages themselves have been designed to be as intuitive and as error-proof as possible. If we scroll down here, we can see the full list of fields that have been dynamically inspected from the object itself, and we're able to pick a field and provide the details such as the matching rule type, standardization rules, and so forth at the field level. Now, if a target object is, I guess, the output of an MDM operation, then the data source is essentially the opposite to that, and that is the input to an MDM operation. And if we look here at an ERP customers object, we can see there that we have for this data source, it has a target object of person account, but the source object is a different object entirely. It is a ERP customer custom object, and because it's a different object, we need to provide a field-to-field mapping that defines how the two structures are mapped. And it's that concept of mapping that enables us, the MDM operations in effect, to work across objects and to dynamically bring records from different objects together for matching and merging purposes. Another aspect of that, of using dynamic field mappings, is that an ERP customer can be retained in the the ERP customer native format for during its life cycle on in the Salesforce environment, and we don't need to standardize that information. We don't need to essentially boil that ERP customer record down into a generic format. We can retain the nuances, the specific fields, and keep the familiar aspects of an ERP customer available to those that are working within Salesforce. And we'll see that in a moment when we look at a master record view. So looking very briefly at the job management functions of clearMDM, we have a jobs page. This allows us to monitor currently running jobs, schedule jobs, and all the various features one would expect of a job management page. Scheduling and being able to specify the level of parallel activity and so on and so forth. I'm not going to drill too much into that. Each job instance is represented by a batch job run record. This tells us the key statistics, the run time of the job, and what the operation was and how it was scheduled and so on and so forth. And because it's just a standard custom object record, we're able to build workflows, process automation around this particular object, and use that as part of proactive notification scenarios. So if jobs fail, we can push notifications to data stewards if a particular level of activity perhaps is over a threshold. Then again, we can start using some of the great platform features, reporting notifications, process builder, and so forth to build out whatever the data steward processes are that are required to deliver upon the concept of continual improvement, the concepts of data management, proactive quality measures, and data governance, and so forth. So this kind of job automation, process automation element is part of that story. Another consideration here is that jobs can be scheduled, of course, from the jobs page, as we saw. We can also build process builder processes that involve a triggering of MDM operations. We can trigger operations via the REST API, so we could have an ETL job that's transiting information onto the Salesforce platform, and as its final step, perhaps triggers a suite of MDM operations to process that data. So moving away from operations and activity and the sort of batch behavior of the product, we start to look at some of the features themselves from a manual user interface perspective. So matching test here is a feature that allows the development of a conditional filter. So we'll do that first and foremost. We'll look for individuals with first name Lewis, email contains Hotmail. So this matching test is going to enable me to find records using conditional filter logic. Let me just pick a couple of records here. And as can be seen, so the logic is using whatever data sources have been configured for this particular target object and applying the search out across those data sources, irrespective of which object those records are held on. So we can find we have two Lewis ear records. Let's select those for comparison. Now we can see the fields that have been configured for matching and the different matching values and the values for the records that I selected, and I'm able to compare the records using those rules and identify whether or not the records are a match. And this kind of functionality can be incredibly useful in terms of exploring the impact of the different settings here and understanding, well, if I tweak this particular value or experiment with this particular set of values, I can find and I guess through an explorative, iterative route, find my way toward the settings that match the data in the best fashion. And once I get to that point and I'm comfortable with the type of match scoring that's being produced, we can then click the button to apply the configuration values back to the target object itself, and any subsequent MDM operations of a matching type would use those values. So a very useful testing tool and experimentation tool. In regard to the duplicate prevention functionality of the clearMDM product. If we proceed to create a person account using the standard mechanism, you can see there's an immediate difference in that the functionality, the standard functionality has been overridden with a search before create feature. Very similar to what we're looking at there in terms of matching test. So here we're obliged to perform a search using the same kinds of filter conditions prior to a create button actually appearing, and if we click create we can see we're into the standard person account creation page. As we can see here, that the search mechanism is again going out across the data sources and finding any matches, and this type of active point of entry protection avoids the necessity to actually enter the full detail of the customer or the supplier, etc. up front. You can actually perform, using some very basic logical conditions, you can perform that search up front, and it can be a very efficient way of identifying whether existing records match the record that is about to be created. Okay, so if we now move to look at one of the manual mechanisms for matching within the clearMDM product and start to look at some of the features relating to single customer view and the 360-degree view. If we take an existing person account here, you can see we have a find matches capability, and this feature is working at an individual record level and is part of the manual suite of functions that complement the batch, the bulk record processing that takes place via the MDM jobs and the MDM operations that are part of those jobs. So if we run the find mechanism, we're applying the same matching logic that the bulk record jobs would do, but here we're looking at for matches for an individual record across the data set. Here we can see there that matching score threshold 65%. We have a number of matches have been identified using fuzzy logic, a number of records that match the perhaps the blocking key values but aren't deemed to be matches. We get that complete picture established here. Of course, we can overwrite the status of the match if we wish to do so by ticking the box. But if we've performed this kind of search, this kind of matching, and we identify that there are a number of duplicates here that we wish to deal with, if we save the matches, what we're actually doing there is creating a matched record group, which is a collection of matched record pair records held within the matched record pair object. Each of those pairing of records has a score percentage and a status, and it's the status that provides one of the levers of control for a data steward. And a data steward's able to configure the product with threshold values that control whether what level record matches are auto-accepted, and the grey area that sits between the auto-accept threshold and the match score threshold, that is the grey area over which manual stewarding would take place. So match status allows not only the control, but we can start to use that status value as part of process automation, reporting notifications, and so forth. But we look at individual pair of records here. So we've got an ERP customer record and we have a person account. We can start to drill in and start to see some of the field level score calculations. And this is it's about empowering data stewards with full transparency in terms of how matches are calculated, and enabling that continual improvement by that transparent view onto the way the product is being is operating, it's functioning in I guess reference to the configuration that has been applied. So that configuration can evolve and improve and provide better and better results over time. The match record group is also the basis upon which merge operations take place. So if we take our group here, and again, we're looking at manual functionality. All of these processes are automated and will run as background tasks when addressing a larger data set, of course. So the manual merge process works across objects, as we can see here. 2 ERP customers, 1 person account. By default, of course, the master record is the person account here. But we have the option to override some of these values if we're not comfortable in the way that that's been selected. But we can cherry pick selectively field values across the different records here, and indeed override if we want to. So let me just put an arbitrary value in there. We can also run, following the merge operation here, we could run the reparenting job, which would take any child transactions related to our ERP customers that are configured for reparenting and actually reparent them up. So when we look at our person account here, we would see those transactions as part of that complete all-encompassing 360-degree view. I won't do that on this occasion. We'll just drive on to the manual merge itself. So now that operation has completed, if we look at the master record, we'll see the last merge date time is updated. MDM status is merge master, so this is our merge master. But we can also see the ERP customer records here, so that we can see the source records related to this master record. And if we had e-commerce customers or website registrants or whatever it may be, we can start to see the related lists, therefore being populated as multiple source records are coming in, they're being related to the master records, and the picture is getting broader, it's getting richer. But a key point, back to an earlier point that was made, that because we're keeping an ERP customer as an ERP customer in its native structure, we can start to bring in fields and pieces of information that are related specifically to the ERP customer. So we have that broader native view emerging here. But we can also reparent the purchase transactions. We can start to see all of the purchase transactions across all source records related to this master record start to roll up, and then it's a question of, well, are there any KPIs that we'd like to aggregate across those transactions and start to build the custom roll-up logic. And this is all about that 360-degree insight. It's about having all the insights, all of the interactions, touch points, transaction level detail, reparented and consolidated to the master record, such that we can, within that single record, view as much information as possible, have that the highest quality data assets available to the front office staff who deal with the customers or suppliers or whoever it may be on a day-to-day basis, that there is no duplicate records in the system. The single point of reference challenge has been addressed. Data management is as part of the back office function. It's about the configuration of the system. It's not a day-to-day operational issue that needs to be managed by the people whose job it is to provide outstanding customer service. So, a couple of final points on the product itself. We have, clearMDM is a 100% native Salesforce application. It has been built and was designed specifically for the Salesforce environment. It's not a report or a transition from a different platform. It's been built to be the best solution it can be and to work very well within the Salesforce environment. There's no data storage overhead, so running in transient mode, there is no necessity to hold records after the merge and match lifecycle. It's possible to delete those records or indeed to keep them and maintain the ERP customers, as we saw as part of the demonstration there. clearMDM has had a very strong objective around being complete in the sense of delivering end-to-end master data management processes that could be augmented if there was a necessity to do so using the standard point-and-click tools of the Salesforce platform. There should be no need to write code or to supplement the product with additional technical customizations. That has been a design objective from the outset of the product. This completes the tour of the product. Any further questions or any further interest, The clearMDM.com website provides a contact page where we'd be absolutely delighted to hear any points of feedback or any further questions. We'd be happy to follow up upon. Okay, thank you.